Jimin's birthday is today. Jin has released a very unserious 2.0 version of SuperTuna, and there's a lot of talk about the Grammys in relation to BTS, so this podcast is going to be kind of an all-encompassing thing about all of those subjects just squished together because I want to. Hi, I'm Monique. I am the host of Off by Purple Art podcast, where I talk to you about K-dramas, C-dramas, BTS, and so much more. And I am doing another BTS podcast video for today. So I wanted to talk about a lot of things. First and foremost, SuperTuna was deeply unserious the first time around, but became a super iconic, super fun way that the fandom really got to engage into a ton of challenges, and Jin decided to repackage it and release a newer, more unhinged version, and it is wild. It is wild. He asked us very kindly, maybe we shouldn't spread it amongst each other, maybe we shouldn't spread it outside the confines of like the ARMY spaces and kind of keep it as like a fandom lore thing. But you know, ARMYs never listen, so it's all over the goddamn place. It's already a bunch of dance challenges, so you know, salutes to you, Jin. I'm pretty sure deep down that's what you wanted. I know he has always had an amazing sense of humor, but I love that even getting out of the military, he's even funnier. I love that energy for him, so I had to get that out. Now, there is definitely a lot of discussion about Grammys in this particular week. BTS members themselves have submitted songs for potential Grammy nominations, and this has always been a very contentious conversation in ARMY spaces about Grammys. I personally have a lot of contentious feelings towards the Academy and just the whole voting process in general. A lot of my artists that I have loved for decades have not gotten even a single nomination, and it's been a pretty sore spot for me personally. And I pretty much tuned out of the Grammys when Kendrick Lamar lost to Macklemore in rap category. I pretty much was like, you know what, I'm good. So I decided no longer to let the Grammys quote unquote stress me. But because I got into BTS 2019 going into 2020, those conversations about Grammys and how they choose to award certain individuals kind of sprung up again and kind of reignited a lot of those feelings. And it brings the age-old question, do BTS need the validation of Western institutions and Western award ceremonies? And obviously, majority of the ARMYs that you would speak to would give a resounding no. I think their track record speaks for itself. I think their level of just global domination, I think they are going to stand the test of time. I think they're a once in a lifetime band. I genuinely don't think they need the validation, but at the same time, the BTS members want it, and I understand for a lot of musicians, Grammys are considered the pinnacle of excellence in that field. For many recording artists, it is the dream, and it's the final step, the final puzzle piece in the entire musical journey trajectory. So I do understand why a lot of artists and musicians put emphasis on it, but I personally do not give a fuck. But you know, BTS do give a fuck, and they do want it, even though I think the importance of it has kind of lessened, and you know, they've had some pretty rude awakenings as far as their dealings with the West, particularly, and how the West has responded to them outside of the fan base. So I wanted to do a video / podcast on songs I believe the BTS members should have Grammy nominations and wins for. Now, I'm going to give you some disclaimers and caveats for this. First disclaimer, obviously my opinions are completely subjective. I am some random on the internet that is just voicing her opinions. So it really shouldn't be an argumentative and contentious thing in the comments, okay? Disclaimer 2, I'm going to be mainly focusing on BTS solo tracks, so individual members' songs that were either part of the BTS discography or on their own solo records or mixtapes. So I will not be focusing on BTS songs as a whole. Third disclaimer, if you have any disagreements about the songs that I have chosen, tough titties. Them the breaks, it's my podcast. So I'm going to voice my subjective opinion. And just because I am highlighting the songs that I'm highlighting does not mean that they are the only songs I love from these guys. There is so much to choose from. That's the cool thing about being a BTS fan. They have a very rich catalog of very diverse music to choose from. These are not even necessarily my favorite songs. These are just songs that I think fit the archetype of what a prototype of a Grammy winner would be if the Grammys and the West didn't have the large bias they have towards BTS. And I think that kind of fits it for disclaimers. I'll start off with the birthday boy, Jimin. Number 1, I really have to highlight Serendipity. I'm going to start off by talking about Serendipity in particular. Serendipity is actually my favorite song of all time. I would go as far as to say, out of all the artists I love, I would place Serendipity right at the top 5 of my favorite songs of all time. That song, it's dreamlike, surreal, ethereal like essence, the level of poetic lyricism in it, how smooth the vocals are, the production value of this song, how emotionally resonant Serendipity is for me in general. I genuinely think Serendipity as love in its purest form, and Serendipity was my first introduction to BTS as far as I can remember. And I remember a YouTuber had used the instrumental of Serendipity in their videos, and I had to find out where that instrumental came from, and that is when the whole rabbit hole of discovering BTS started. And forever I will be thankful to Jimin, the birthday boy of today, because I am filming this on Oct 12. I will be forever grateful for Jimin for that song. It is a gorgeous song, and it is pretty much the soundtrack to my life. Yeah, I'm completely biased towards it, but I think structurally how that song is and how the video actually pretty much brings out all the beautiful pastel colors of this dreamwork-like song. I think it has all the beats to what I think a Grammy song could have, and I just think it holds up well over time. It is a song that I quite literally never get tired of listening to. It is such a powerful joint. So I had to highlight Serendipity first and foremost from the birthday boy. Second, I have to say Lie. It would be criminal of me not to mention Lie from Jimin. This song to me is probably one of the most well produced in the BTS catalog. I don't know of a song that has such an interesting structure to it. Lie is hauntingly dark. It's suspenseful in such thrilling ways. It really is reminiscent of like a horror film. And the way that the lyrics are constructed, the way the song is constructed in itself, all of it is a lie. And I think there's so much building tension in that song that you're almost breathless listening to it, just as Jimin is intentionally phrasing some of the lyrics to come across extraordinarily desperate to catch his breath. There's such a distorted reality to Lie, and it is so manic at first, and how it plunges you into the storytelling of it, and it really sets up a sense of urgency. And then there is this incredible release in it. There is this resigned defeat to Jimin as he tells this tale, and he resigns himself to this very dark and sorrow fate. And the instrumentation of this song all represents this as well. The complexity of the instrumentation in this song is crazy. There's several videos on YouTube that kind of break down the actual brilliance of Lie and how it was constructed. It is such a gorgeous song. And to me, the fact that outside of the BTS fandom at large, this will never have the wide appeal and the level of attention that it deserves. And especially with the chorus and how it tricks you into almost thinking that the song has a happy note, but yet all the verses and the bridge shows you the distortion of Jimin's reality within this song. It is just short of remarkable. The whole entire Wings era, to me, not even just the lyricism and so much of the music in it, but the actual mood board, the styling of it. I think about the trailer that announced BTS's tour. I think of like Boy Meets Evil. I think of the stage shows that they did. In particular, I always think about Jimin being blindfolded and the level of intricacy in his dance. The Wings era is some of my favorite, and I know it came from an extremely dark place, and it probably wasn't the most joyful to make. I know Jimin went through a lot emotionally to wring out the emotion for that music, so I'm not delighting in the trauma that brought about, but I just think visually, lyrically, tonally, everything about the Wings era, and particularly Live from Jimin, was a masterpiece. But yes, I do think it is Grammy, not Grammy nominated worthy, but Grammy winning. It is a literal work of art. Thirdly, I have to talk about Like Crazy. Like Crazy, and all the members have one marquee standout song that really sings to my soul, but Like Crazy is just undeniable. It is a fantastic retro pop, slick, stylistic, hypnotic, like the catchiest hooks ever. I'm not surprised at the actual success of Like Crazy, and I remember just around the time the Barbie movie was coming out and the initial launch trailers had come out, and the amount of edits I saw using Like Crazy's instrumental and just the chorus from Jimin's song to promote that song, and people actually thought it was a part of the soundtrack, which it should have goddamn been. Anyway, Like Crazy and its actual success, to me, is peak Grammy nomination material. I'm telling you, it is absolutely nuts that it didn't receive. And I know the Grammys like to pick and choose. They like to say they don't look at numbers and popularity, and they want to look at, artistic integrity and and more of the indie niche type sound. But then they have no problems when it becomes to like big performing artists like Taylor Swift, for example. Then it's all about popularity and numbers. But in any case, Like Crazy not only is charmingly made, it actually is a fantastic, solid pop song. Like structurally solid, just hardcore. It is some of the best work. And even with its success, the fact that it isn't even bigger than it is crazy to me. I'm gonna hit on our leader, Namjoon, who happens to be my bias. And I have a lot to choose from with Namjoon. In particular, I would say, right place, wrong person. The entire project is being critically acclaimed by so many journalists, and it's reaching circles far beyond like K-pop and the music listening audience. It has such wild appeal, but me, Wildflower sticks out to me, featuring Yoojin. When I first heard those fireworks in that music video, when it first launched, I actually burst into tears. I was already so moved. And then when I heard the lyrics specifically, no name, that's what I have, no shame, I'm on my grave, I was inconsolable. I did like this TikTok of my initial reaction after listening to that music video, and I could barely get through the TikTok. I was crying on and off so much. Wildflower is probably Namjoon at his most vulnerable that I've ever heard him. And his fearlessness in being able to literally cut himself open lyrically and just bare himself to his audience and just bleed out to his audience all of his emotions is something really awe-inspiring. And I just love how his brain works, and he truly understands what it means to be a rapper, which is someone that is able to combine rhythm and poetry. He is such an avid reader, and his way of forming metaphors is next level, and I do want a poetry book from him someday, and I hope I get it. But Wildflower, and especially with him specifically selecting Yujin to sing the chorus, and her extremely powerful rock and gritty vocals, and the level of motion and passion and almost despair, and how she was able to portray what was the inner battle going on in Namjoon to make that song. And the hook, I'm going to say the English translation of it, of going to shine across the sky. That particular part in the chorus that she sings, every single time I feel like I'm tearing up. And it's so much later that that song has been released, and it still has such an emotional effect on me. And to me, that has all the hallmarks of a Grammy song. There's something so big about that song that it just cannot be contained. It feels like a movie soundtrack to this coming of age story about youth. And you know, those art house films that might end at a somewhat bittersweet note is what is encapsulated in Wildflower. Closer from Namjoon as well. Should have been a big hit across the board. Like R&B perfection. If I were to define yearning, that would be Closer. That song, I swear to God, there's 3 songs from the BTS's solo work that are amongst my most streamed songs ever. Closer is one of them. You'll hear the other 2 within this same podcast, but Closer is one of them. Probably one of the highest streamed songs from the solo work from their actual recent solo project releases. The desperation in Namjoon, in those lyrics, the yearning to keep that partner close to him, but knowing that time is slipping away through his fingers, and that relationship is doomed, no matter how much he doesn't want it to be so. I could talk and break down the actual lyrics itself, but just the performance of the song, Malia's voice in particular, I think he did a marvelous job in picking her. And it's such a nostalgic, faded quality to her voice and how it was styled in post-production. And it feels like a haunting memory, which he's trying to express through this song. And there's just something that's so quiet and full of despair in that. And then Paul Blanco and his flowery and his springy falsetto, just gorgeous work, and everything about it really is like, it tears into me. Just the lyrics of wanting to be under your skin, that loneliness that you feel it most times in the middle of night, even though that is when I am physically the most closest to you, but it's the farthest that you could be from me emotionally and spiritually, because I know that the relationship is dying out. And just hearing him plead again and again to just please just stay where you are, just stay where you are, and knowing no matter how much times that he begs and pleads for that, it's not gonna happen, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Jin SuperTuna Jin, I would say, in my humble opinion, Epiphany. I know that's not a surprise to anyone, that Epiphany is what I believe to be a Grammy award-winning song. But there is the actual released version of Epiphany that we've come to know to love as fans, and then there's also the demo version that was released in Proof. I'm gonna probably say something unpopular here, but out of the 2, I actually prefer the demo release of Epiphany. I think Jin has such unique vocals, and I think at times his vocals are really underutilized in BTS. And I understand when you're dealing with 7 members, you're not always going to get equal footing in line distribution, and I'm not one of those type of armies that get into fights about line distribution. I understand who are the lead vocalists of BTS are, and I know that the guys have a lot of control and what their creative input is into their songs. So I'm not starting that argument. Hey, keep it cute in the comments, all right? Even though I'm saying this and maybe 2 people will actually watch this video and maybe 1.5 will actually listen to it, the audio version. Anyway, but the Epiphany, the demo version, there's something so gripping about it that it like rips emotions out of me. Like, I think I cry about it every single time. His melodic lullaby-esque voice, especially in a demo version, I genuinely want him to re-release that version of Epiphany. I don't know if he could extend it a little bit, remaster the original music video and add pieces to it for his upcoming solo project. But to me, Epiphany not only is Grammy nominated, it could be literally the soundtrack to the most devastating film that you can think of that centers around romance. And it would be like the perfect backdrop to it. I honestly cry when I think about that song. And the bridge in the demo version and the I want you more and more, the notes that he hits when the guitar comes in, the chills, the goosebumps, I can't get over the demo version of Epiphany. It is like my villain origin story, because I'm like, so many people need to know this version. And I know they don't need the validation, but this song deserves to be like #1 on Billboard, not even just the Grammy nominations. It deserves so much, and it just pisses me off that it doesn't get that. I would also name check Abyss as a Grammy award-winning song. I mean, the frank discussion about mental health, the note that Jin left for ARMYs as to the fear he had initially in releasing it, and, you know, getting the encouragement and talking with like Hitman Bang about it. Everything about Abyss to me is so gorgeous. And to me, it's very reminiscent of a lot of the more somber, I'm hesitant to call it a ballad, but it's a ballad of sorts. But to me, it's exactly what a Grammy contention type song would be. And I think lyrically, it's really deep work. I would argue that it would be something that really would deserve consideration. Astronaut, of course, the Astronaut as well, along with the fact that Coldplay, specifically Chris Martin, had lent his helping hand in creating that. The emotional resonance of Astronaut, the emotional turmoil in particular when it was announced that Jin would be enlisting first. And I pretty much documented my heartbreak about that on TikTok as well. And I was not okay. I wasn't okay for any of the enlistments, but Jin's really, really shook me. And in particular because of the live that he did, and when he had let ARMY in to say that he had seen the commentary around why he wasn't enlisted in the time frame that outsiders thought he should have been enlisted, and how hurtful he thought that was, and that he always had intention, just like the other members always had intention in enlisting, and how insensitive so many people were. That's my interjection. He never talked about the insensitivity of people. He just said how hurt he was by the commentary. I'm saying it was insensitive as all fuck. Like, you don't understand the emotional gravity it is for any family members that have to deal with sons that are enlisting, and in other regions as well. And especially in this day and age and everything that is going on, it's extraordinarily risky and dangerous, and is endangering. And no man nor woman should feel that they should have to be forced into mandatory enlistment. But that is a whole other thing, and I'm not going to get into the crux of it. I especially don't want to dissect that, because I am not a Korean person and it's not my place to do so. But I understood just how sensitive of topic that was, and I felt so bad for him in that live. And every time I hear the Astronaut, not even just how melancholy it is and how gorgeous it is and how well produced, and that I do believe that it is a Grammy award-winning song, but it always brings me back to that live as well. And it's a painful song for me. Let me put it that way. But it's gorgeous, and I believe it deserves award attention. I'm going to talk about The Last. I feel like that should be obvious. I think The Last is probably the rawest and most cutting lyrics I've ever heard out of any member. I think that The Last, while Serendipity from Jimin was what brought me into BTS, I think The Last from Yoongi from his first mixtape was what truly cemented me and made me realize that I was a ARMY and that I was going to be a BTS fan most likely for the rest of my life. I think I had a really hard time in 2019 prior to me getting into BTS, and shortly after discovering Serendipity was when I found The Last, and the emotional journey that particular song takes you through, you can hear the passion that he records that song with. It's very complex. It's the darkest I've ever heard him. It's the saddest I've ever heard him, and it's the most defeated I've ever heard him in a song. Yet there's still a twinge of hopefulness in it, despite how dark that song is. I always think of the part with the flat line where it's implying about self-harm and potentially what he may or may have not done and what he was thinking of and how scared that he was. And it just, in its darkness, I felt a lot of comfort in that. And it showed me the complexity of the individual's members' lyricism. It was truly something of a journey to be taken on. And I think that is a Grammy award-winning song. The instrumentation, the lyrics, the sheer passion and rawness from that track. Like, I have chills thinking about what it would look like to see him actually record that raw. His tour, and that being the song to end the program for the night, and then for the final night for him to walk through that door, it's something to behold. Devjata, I'm mispronouncing the fuck out of it. Excuse me, I'm not in my right mind right now. But the cultural significance, the birth of Shuata from that song as well. I have a lot of love for it, but the thematicness of the music video sticks out in my mind. In addition, it really shows Yoongi's prowess as a rapper, and it shows the skill level that he has. He has a lot of songs that does this, but I think the flow switches, I think so many people are so used to like the anger and the spitfireness of how quick the tongue technology works. But that one particular bridge in the song where he gets into that low tone and the flow switching that he does within that, and the camera's kind of circling around him. To me, the breath control in that, the skill set as a rapper to do that it's a high level of difficulty. And for me, for the sheer level of difficulty that it takes for that, the breath control in that, and the whole larger than life quality of Devjata, I truly believe that it was Grammy award-winning work that he did there, which is similarly how I feel to Shadow, which was, I think in my mind, I thought Map of the Soul 7, even though there is some dark work in it, especially when you break down the lyrics of like BTS's Black Swan, when initially Shadow was teased to us, I really thought the album would be extremely dark, like as dark as what a lot of what Wings was. And Shadow really sticks out to me as well, and the voice distortion in particular, and the lyricism of that particular song. And it kind of reminds me of Lie from Jimin as well, as far as the building tension in that, and him, you literally see him in the music video like running and succumbing to the darkness surrounding him, or the dancers surrounding him. And it's that whole tension and release thing that it reminds me heavily of Lie as well. But I think on a production standpoint, it's a pretty strong song, and I also believe that was Grammy award winning. Will be my man. I kind of consider him like a second Bias, and he's coming back. Like, he's completed 99.9% of his military enlistment, so I can't wait for for him to be back and for him and Jin to get into all sorts of hijinks. I'm going to say Arson right out the bat is probably the most underrated song released from any of the members. To me, that is one of my most streamed from the members' solo work. So you know how I said that there's 3 songs? So Closer is one. Number 2 is absolutely, without a shadow of doubt, from the more recent release solo work, is Arson. That is the amount of play that went triple diamond in this household. The aggression of it, the delivery of it. I always think in the music video in particular, when you see that his suit has been completely burned through and you see him dancing around all the debris in that post-apocalyptic like scene, and the flow switching that he does as well, I feel like he should get a lot more credit as his technical skill set as a rapper and his musicality and how he delivers certain lyrics. That entire section in that music video of Arson is so hypnotic to me. And to me, Arson, especially when you see it live, for example in Lollapalooza or Hobbypalooza, shows you the brilliance of that song. No backing, purely his vocals and then the band behind him. And the amount of charisma, the rock version in itself could have been a big winner in the rock alternative category for Grammys. Yeah, this is all my subjective opinion, but that song is too fucking powerful to be at the point where it's at. I understand. I know the fans loved it. I'm just saying it deserved to be bigger than what it was. Arson is literally diamond in my heart. That song, like, I think it's one of the greatest that he's done. Production wise, it's out of this world. I fucking love Arson. On the Street obviously would be another pick, and I think that this could have easily been for like best duo, and I think Hobie did an amazing thing. I kind of mentioned this in my BTS Paved the Way podcast that I recently uploaded. Hobie could have done a lot more in that track, but he really loved and respect Cole so much that he gave the floor to Cole in that song. And the bars that J. Cole was able to deliver, I had said that in my podcast prior to the BTS Paved the Way one, that I think that's some of Cole's best work. And I think it was just a well-constructed rap song that really had that 90s feel to it, but the emotional heartfeltness of it and just the hope, out of it. There's just something about it that I think is magical. And I know it did well, and I know it got a lot of hip-hop heads interested in BTS and their discography and realizing how complex BTS is, and they're not just a boy band that exist for women to thirst after, even though there's absolutely nothing wrong with women thirsting after men that they find attractive who they also connect to their music emotionally. I don't know why women have to be demonized for the things they love and enjoy, but anyways, that's going to be a whole other topic and you probably don't want to hear about that. So anyway, more I think as well as far as a rock song, and to me that was rock alternative, and that didn't get as enough shine as I believe it should be. I'm telling you, Jack in the Box in general, man, fuck. I know there was a lot of controversy about how that was released, and there was a lot of pushback from some of the fans about it, which pissed me off as well, but I think that song in particular as well could have easily won in the rock categories. And this brings me to Tay. Yeah, Love Me Again. This is going to be a particular continuous theme that I'm going to keep saying. There's so much gems in the solo work that did not get enough love. I do not think Love Me Again, ironically enough, got enough love. And I know Tay is very popular, but it just simply didn't. There's so much about this song that I love so much. The buttery vocals for one. The fact that it's not even only nostalgic, but the female vocalist that you hear faded in the opening of this song in particular reminds me so much of Sade that it's frightening. And if you know anything about me, I love Sade. She is one of my favorite soul singers of all time. And burns me that I don't think there'll ever be a collaboration between her and Tay, but I think the two of them would have the most gorgeous vocals together. And that opening is so reminiscent of her to me that I can't get it out of my head. I did a video / podcast on Tay in particular and about Love Me Again, and I talked about it there too. The gorgeous jazz is like right up the Academy's sleeve. They love them a good jazz album. And this is like Tay's biggest forte, is jazz and R&B and neo soul. You can tell how much he loves that genre and how much respect he pays to that genre. But Love Me Again, even the music video, it was so warm and it was so comforting, even in the loneliness in that song and in the cave and the yearning that he was able to express in it. But there's like this holiday type feeling to that song as well. Like, I don't know what it is about that song and being around like an open fire with people that you love. I don't know. It kind of breaks my heart. I just think that song deserved much bigger shine. And that part of Lost With You, Baby. I don't know how to sing it. I'm not a vocalist. There's just something about it. Like the snapping of the fingers in the opening. I again really, really want him to collaborate with Sade. I think they would get along marvelously. And when I think of like his Tiny Desk performance and I see her in my mind and I can see the collaboration, it could be so fucking powerful. But yeah, I think that should have been Grammy Award nominated. And to me, it's right in the vein of, you know, more current jazz artists that they have awarded in recent memory. And it's like, it fits right in there. Okay. I think Friends from him too was an amazing pop single and it did pretty well. But I think it's another one of those that, had he not been a person of color and there wasn't like a prejudice or bias towards him, Friends would have been much bigger of a single. Like, I mean, inescapable, in your local Target kind of hit. So I think Friends too, but I have to talk a little bit about Singularity as well. Singularity, I know this is going way back, but to me, if you watch the YouTube creator Gameboy310, he's like a reaction channel and he reacts to all sorts of different type of music, but he recently fell into the BTS sphere of things, and it was actually through Hobie and his collaboration with J. Cole that put him on. And he has since done a lot of reaction videos specifically to the BTS members' solo work. And he recently put out a video about Singularity. And if you watch the entirety of that video, and I highly recommend you do, and most likely if you've stumbled across this podcast, at least the video format on YouTube, you most likely have already watched and you've heard of him. But if not, I think Rudy did a really great job in breaking down the brilliance of that song and how reminiscent of 90s R&B it is, and how it reminds me a whole lot of D'Angelo too. Like the whole neo soul emergence in late 90s is the epitome of that song. And I think it's great vocal work, and the bass that he gets to with that song, and then the high falsettos that he gets to in that song. I think it's just an interestingly structured song, and it borrows from so many different R&B genres, because R&B in itself is a pretty complex category and there's a lot of little subgenres within it. And I think Singularity is a masterclass in that, and I think it easily makes Tay the secret weapon of BTS. Jungkook, the golden machine. I have talked for a long time, and I'm not gonna shortchange Jungkook per se, but I have to focus everything on a particular song. So Jungkook is responsible for one of my third biggest streaming songs as far as the solo works from BTS. And it's not Seven, surprisingly enough. As massive as Seven was, the cultural impact of Seven, the amount of Billboard topping Seven did, and that in itself should have made it a contender for Grammys. It was big and massive enough that Seven, all by its little lonesome, could have been that girl. But to me, nothing stands in the way of, ironically enough, Standing Next to You. I'm sure you must have guessed that. If it wasn't Seven, it had to have been Standing Next to You. Literally my favorite song. I'm gonna be totally 100% honest with you. I was literally listening to it as I was getting ready to sit down and film and record this podcast. Like, no joke. That went triple gold, platinum, diamond in my house. To this fucking day, I could play that song and never get fucking bored. That song, bass and drums, literally could be in movie soundtracks, literally could be played at football games, should be in every fucking movie trailer you could think of, should be in every Target, every Whole Foods, every Trader Joe's, everywhere, Walmart. It should never stop playing. It has big band energy. It has all the MJ influences, intentional, some of his best vocal work, his charisma, his absolute gigantic star quality power. He has all the leading man credentials. He is a fucking powerhouse, and it is exemplified in that song. The take off. That whole part. It should be fucking everywhere. To me, this will be my biggest origin villain story. All the songs that I've just listed in this long as fuck podcast, absolutely, Standing Next to You should be Grammy winning. And I know it won't be because of the bias and the prejudice and da-da-da-da-da. I'm just fucking saying, this song has everything to it that would be a Grammy winner. I'm telling you right now, if Bruno Mars came out with this exact same fucking song, sang it the exact same fucking way, did his little dancey dance and whatever, you don't think that that would be fucking everywhere? Be honest with me. Tell me. Right? If Harry Styles came out with this exact same fucking song, you think there would be any fucking corner on this fucking God-forsaken earth that you wouldn't hear that fucking song every goddamn day? Huh? Huh? I know how big this song is. I know it was massive. I fucking know. It still wasn't big enough. Okay? It wasn't big enough. This is like one of my favorite songs. I cannot get enough of it. It should be the biggest song in the fucking world. Non-stop. It should have the same staying power as fucking what Weeknd song am I thinking of that hadn't left the Billboard charts for like over a year and a half? It should be like that. It would be fucking everywhere. If there wasn't the prejudice and bias towards the fact that Jungkook is Korean, I'm telling you right now, that song would be fucking everywhere. As big as it was and is, it should have been and should be the biggest song. Point blank period. I'm sorry if that's a controversial thing to say. I'm being serious. It was that fucking good. It had everything. Has everything. Star quality, star power, everything that personified Jungkook. There's a reason why he's a golden Mackinac. That song, everything he's capable of, and that still isn't even the top of it. It scares me what he's capable of. When he's out of the fucking military and he doesn't have the confines of the government looming over his head, but Jungkook and what he's capable of, it scares me. It scares me. To have all that fucking talent. Anyway, it's gonna get me heated and it's gonna get me very upset. I think Still With You and My Time, I kind of struggle between those two, which are also massive Jungkook songs as well, that I both think deserve Grammy contention. As far as which I'm leaning more to, I think Still With You. I think My Time, while it's good and it's a good R&B track, pop, R&B influenced track, I think Still With You and the quietness of that too is more the Grammy favored. But I think both of those as well are particularly strong, especially like the live performances of it really elevate those songs. My Time, I think of like a Map of the Soul 1 concerts, and particularly like the leather outfit version of My Time. But even like the red, I was thinking that too. But I'm still fucking mad about Standing Next to You. I could do a literally entire podcast ranting about how that song should be fucking everywhere. It should be in your fucking pores. That song... Anyways, I think I'm going to be... I think I need to take a break. I need to take a step back. I'm getting pissed off. I wanted to talk so much more, but my camera is heating up and I don't think I can do much more because I'm going to get very angry and it's going to get very unhinged. But yeah, Standing Next to You alone should be the biggest Grammy winner of all time. It should get 10 Grammys, 15, 20, 55. I could go on. Anyway, I'm going to conclude this for my podcast. What are your thoughts? If you made it to the end, I am wicked impressed because this was a lot. This was a lot, my friend. Anyway, let me know your thoughts below if you're watching via YouTube. If you're watching, or I should say if you're listening via Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I love you. I appreciate you for listening to this ramble so much.